All right, welcome back to another edition of my Thursday Night Live. We've got a fun one tonight. We're talking about red flags and green flags as it relates to moving to Northern Michigan. As always, I'm your host, Geno D'Angelo, in Northern Michigan Real Estate. For those of you that don't know me, a lot of you watch this live, which I appreciate. If you're watching it live or you're watching the replay, drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, and I appreciate you tuning in. Next week, we're going to have a good episode. We're talking about the halfway breakdown, what happened in the first half of the real estate market in Northern Michigan, and what we expect to see in the second half. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, we're going to be talking about red flags and green flags about moving to Northern Michigan. This is supposed to be informational, a little bit fun. Again, if there's anything on your mind as it relates to Northern Michigan real estate, feel free to drop a comment. And also, as always, let me know where you're watching from. So, without further ado, let's hop into it. The first red flag: if you think winter ends in March, Northern Michigan may not be for you. If you're somebody that's going to only be here seasonally, you're not going to have to worry about this. If you're somebody that's planning on relocating to Northern Michigan full time, then you're going to have to deal with winter extending certainly past March, most of the time into April, sometimes a teeny bit into May. Sherlock the Pug says, happy to you, Sherlock the Pug. I hope you're well wherever you're watching from. It's been a great week. The weather's been great. June wasn't so good. The weather in June here wasn't great, but the weather in July has been awesome. It does look like, unfortunately, we're going to get a little bit of rain this Saturday, which is unfortunate because if you live in Northern Michigan and you were to wait each day, the value of each day, there's nothing more valuable than a Saturday in July, but that's okay. Sometimes we need to slow down, relax, chill inside, read a book, go to a restaurant. Dr. Ian the best thing we ever did was move from Royal Oak to Traverse City. I'm certainly happy you did. Ian is one of my best friends. He's a lender, helps a lot of our clients. I don't know what I would do without him. So, Ian, I'm glad you're watching. Shark the Pug, you're watching all the way from Alanson. I was actually just in Alanson. I had appointments today. Actually, I just drove through Alanson. I had an appointment today for a buyer on Black Lake and Burt Lake. We're starting to see some more lakefront inventory pop up. And I drove through Alanson, and I've got a quick funny story about Alanson is I never have to have more willpower than when I drive past the Dairy Queen in Alanson because I love Dairy Queen. The one in Alanson is great. And luckily it's far enough away. It's close, but it's far enough away that I can't be super impulsive and go there. So thanks for watching from Alanson. You don't own a snowblower. It's gonna be a red flag. It's gonna be a hard time if you either it's okay if you don't own a snowblower, you better know somebody that owns a snowblower or knows somebody that has a snowplow because if you're gonna be here year round, you're gonna have to contend with the snow, and it seems like not that long ago, we were under 3, 5 feet of snow. We had a really harsh winter, but, the summer's here, so definitely something to consider. You assume lake access means sandy beaches and private docks. This came up because we saw a couple of listings this week as we were working with some of our waterfront buyers. And you've got to be careful when you're looking on the MLS or looking on Zillow or realtorhomes.com or wherever you choose to look for homes because oftentimes lake access is a big variable. It can mean a lot of different things. Often it means you have access to a deeded beach. Sometimes it's a private deeded beach, or I'm sorry, most of the time it's a private deeded beach. Sometimes it just means the house is close to public access, which means you might get Sandy Beach, but you're certainly not gonna get a private dock. So if you're looking for waterfront property in Northern Michigan in the second half of this year or anytime for that matter, make sure you know what each, definition of waterfront ownership is. This is another one we had a call this week with somebody. We started to get a lot of this where people are calling us to relocate to Northern Michigan that are just not familiar with Northern Michigan. And it's interesting because I've made hundreds and hundreds of videos on this topic, and this person actually found me from the channel, but they must not have watched very far because they told me that they thought moving to Petoskey would be cheap because it's such a small town. And I think it is the exact opposite of that. Sometimes when you move to small towns, and this is part of the reason I think we saw such a boom here, is there's only so many houses for sale in Petoskey or Harbor Spring or Boyne City or even Traverse City. We're certainly starting to see inventory pick up a little bit, which is interesting. You're going to want to tune in next week. Not to give I'll give it a shameless plug. You're going to want to tune in next week because um, this has been, I've been doing this for 22 years. And the last time we saw this much we saw the market start to correct a little bit. I was very, very young, and I don't know if I fully understood what was going on, but I'm certainly more seasoned now, and it's interesting to watch the market and inventory start to pile up a little bit. And I saw actually Realtor.com posted an article the other day. I woke up one morning and the first email I saw was like, 50% of the people who have right now are they say will take them off because they're not going to get the price that they hope for. And I was just on a listing appointment this week, and what I'm starting to tell people is, sure, if you've owned your house for 10, 15, 20 years, even over 5 years, the value today is still much higher than you ever expected. Now, if you bought your house 2 or 3 years ago and you're trying to sell on this market and recoup what you have into the house, now that's certainly a lot harder. So those are just the conversations we're having because believe it or not, a lot of people buy houses and then sell them 2 or 3 years later, which in the last few years, that's been okay. But as the market starts to cool, interest rates remain high, buyers are sort of sitting on the sidelines. It's just not as easy or not as possible to do that. So certainly keep that in mind. You want nightlife. Northern Michigan has some great bars, great restaurants, great things to do in the evening, but our nightlife here does not stay open late. In fact, most bars and restaurants stay open till 10, maybe 11 in the summertime. I actually heard I did this for a video a while back, I learned this. There's 3 bars that stay open till 2 a.m. anymore. Now, when I was younger, before Facebook, and I don't wanna date myself, before Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and everything else, um, going out to one of the local bars or restaurants or whatever that stayed open late was sort of the social network. That's how you met people, that's how you hung out with your friends, way before online became a thing. But there's so every bar used to stay open until 2 a.m. There are 3 bars in Northern Michigan that stay open until 2 a.m. now, and I'm gonna tell you what they are. It's the Mitchell Street Pub, the Townhouse in Charlevoix. Mitchell Street Pub is in Petoskey, not Mitchell Street, the same road, same street that my office is on, but just 2 blocks north. Mitchell Street Pub, the Townhouse in Charlevoix, right downtown, and the Gold Nugget in Ellsworth of all places. If you've never been there, it's a complete dive bar, but it's super cool. And those are so if you're looking for late night entertainment, but again, that's 3 places out of a huge area. So if you want late night life, Northern Michigan is it's gonna be a little bit difficult for you. So, as always, thank you for joining, whether you're watching live or the replay. If you're not yet subscribed, it would mean the world to me if you'd hit the subscribe button. It helps us make the channel better, it helps us make better videos. And there are a lot of people behind the camera, pun intended, more than just myself making this channel possible, and they watch the subscriber count and the statistics as much as I do, and it sorta, it lets them get a little bit of validation when we have a video that does well. So if you're not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It would mean the world to us. You assume there's high speed internet everywhere. Now, this is certainly more of the case now than it used to be. I remember 5 years ago before TrueStream came through from Great Lakes Energy and ING on the other side of the state just put fiber optic through. Actually, this is a funny story. I have a house east of Indiana, which I go to. If you follow me on social media, which if you don't follow me on social media, Geno D'Angelo, Instagram, Facebook, I'd love to, I know a lot of you have started to follow me. I'd love for all of you to follow me or anybody that's interested in what I have going on behind the scenes. But I have a little house in a town called Afton, east of Indian River, which I love to go to in the summer. And we were getting wireless internet there, and I thought this was my opportunity to get Starlink. I think Starlink's cool. I think the whole concept is cool, but I ordered it and I realized there was way more work involved than just having the fiber optic internet that was already there. So I think I'm gonna send it back. Unfortunately, I was really hoping part of me just wanted to have Starlink just so I could tell my clients about it and make a video about it and tell everybody that this was the solution to internet issues in Northern Michigan, but maybe I'll save that for another day. Heck, in the summer, our AT&T cell service that's actually a good point. Ian brings up a good point. I remember when I was young, the only job I had 2 jobs as an adult. I managed hotels in Mackinac City for a long time, or worked at hotels, man, whatever, and then I sold real estate. So when I was younger, I used to work in Mackinac City, and that was when cell phones were just becoming popular, like, Nextel, Chirp, and the flip phones finally had a color screen, so I feel really old telling the story, but that's okay. And there's if you know anything about Mackinac City, it's been the number one Mackinac City and Traverse City go back and forth for the number one tourist destination in, Michigan, the Midwest. These are areas that everybody flocks to. if you're watching this and you've never been to Mackinac City or to Mackinac Island, look it up. Mackinac Island is this island that you can get cars on. It's like taking a step back in time. It's a really cool place to visit. Mackinac City is one of my favorite places to visit also. I've got a lot of friends there. And in the summertime, your cell phones were useless because there was just so many people in one small area taxing these towers. And as Ian mentioned a moment ago, we still have that happen here in the summertime. If you're in Petoskey, or as Ian said, Traverse City, on a busy July afternoon, your cell phone is gonna suffer a little bit. So that's something that surprises a lot of people, but it certainly happens. And that's when you can tell that summer's in full force because, these towers aren't designed for the amount of people that come here to use them. And it's not even, um, it's not like it's 1 or 2 people. I mean, these houses, when you drive by, I was on Burt Lake today, and you go out on these waterfront streets where there's all the houses on the water, and there's people, so many visitors, they're parked in the driveway, they're parked across the street, they're parked down the road. That's just an example of how many people come to this area and fill the houses and enjoy the beautiful weather. So the one downside is that it's a little bit hard on our cell phone service and even our Wi-Fi. Sometimes our Wi-Fi at the office in the summer is a little bit spotty, but that's okay. That's part of living in a resort. Kate and Laura are heading to Mackinac City tomorrow. I hope they have a great time. Tell Kate and Laura if they need any recommendations on where to get food or what to do. I've got them covered. If you like hot dogs and you're in Mackinac City, make sure you check out a restaurant called Geno, which is got a giant hot dog, the world's biggest hot dog or hot dog model or whatever it is. So definitely something cool to check out. This is my least favorite. You expect 2-day Amazon Prime shipping. I don't know if it's like this everywhere. Drop a comment below if you live in an area. Do you Amazon Prime still deliver stuff in 2 days? We've had this debate, and I think this is a good, forum for this conversation. If you're watching this, whether it's live or the replay, do you get and so it's 3 things. If you're watching this live or the replay and you're an Amazon Prime member, meaning you pay the monthly subscription or yearly or years to be a member of Prime, do you get 2-day shipping? Because it seems like it's been a couple of years since we've gotten 2-day shipping in Petoskey, even though I've been a member of Prime for as long as I can remember. Are you seeing many people exit their Yes, that's a great question. Adopt early tech, that is a great question. Yes, we've seen we've seen many people exit their short-term rental list. I've talked about this in the live before. If you we It seems like the people that there was like a wave. There was a rush to get them, and then there was a little bit of a slow trickle, I guess, for lack of a better word. I know that's a weird word, but a slow trickle of them hitting the market, and I think that's continued. That market is really interesting because prior to, not prior to COVID, but prior to COVID and just after COVID, that was like the most hot button. Affordable housing and short-term rentals. Those are the 2 topics if you wanna start a fight about real estate on the internet. Those are the 2 things here to talk about. And it seems that we don't hear about it anymore. I went to a short-term rental seminar in Traverse City this spring, and there was a few people there, but we just we still, again, shameless plug, we own a short-term rental management company, 231 Vacation Rentals. We've got some big stuff coming with that. But that's something we started just to do because our clients needed somebody to take care of their short-term rentals. We felt like we already had the infrastructure, running a successful brokerage and a successful team that could do that, so we've helped them. Um, we've been at a steady number. We haven't lost a bunch. We haven't gained a bunch. I'll say this: it's if you if you've had a property for a long time, you can probably short-term rent it and do okay. To buy a property with these prices and rent them with what they will generate or the revenue they will pull in today's market, it does not make sense. You want a vacation hack, which is one of my favorite terms, meaning you buy a house and then rent it out a few weeks of the year to offset the taxes or insurance or some of the costs, or put it towards your new boat, or maybe it allows you to buy a bigger house because you're going to rent it off to offset some of the costs. You can do that, but that's a good question. Not really tech. We're definitely seeing people exit their short-term rental investments. When the internet goes down, we head to the lake, problem solved. The converse of that, I'm sure we're gonna talk about this tonight, is when it rains, everybody heads to the lakes to downtown. So, you're downtown, if you're in Petoskey or Traverse City, you're one of these small towns on like, what was supposed to be a July day and it rains, prepare because, um, the shops get busy, the restaurants get busy, everybody comes down to get coffee, and it's just, again, part of it. Daniel Poma says, "Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for watching." Was in Mackinac 2 days ago, absolutely worth it. Absolutely, I love Mackinac, I go there often. Like I said, I've got a bunch of friends that live there. Drop a comment, let me know, what did you do in Mackinac? Give my friend Ian and his wife, or Ian's wife and daughter some ideas. What did you guys do in Mackinac that you enjoyed that they should check out? Frank V says, "No Amazon 2 yeah, usually 3 days." Frank V, remind me where you live because I'm curious. Maybe Amazon bamboozled us. Maybe they don't do the 2-day shipping anymore. Maybe that was something they did for a while and got us hooked, and now they don't do it. We are starting to see Amazon, so there's an Amazon hub in Gaylord, and I've gotten to know our mailman here. We've got a really interesting story. We've got a really interesting story, with our mailman. He's a crazy guy. We talk to him every single day when he brings the mail, and he gives us, like, the tea on um, what's going on in the postal industry, and they haven't quite worked the kinks out at the new Amazon distribution center in Gaylord. Now, I know they're building one, in Traverse City, so maybe we'll get their service here, but as of right now, Frank V says, "Oh, that's right. I remember that. Sorry about that." Yeah, Bel Air, that doesn't surprise me. If it sounds like you don't get in Traverse City, or if you don't get two-day Amazon Prime in Traverse City, you're not gonna get two-day Amazon Prime anywhere in Northern Michigan. This is more of a Midwest one than a Petoskey one. You hate talking to your neighbors. If there's anything in the world that Midwesterners are known for, one of the things Midwesterners are known for, outside of calling soda pop, is being very neighborly. Everywhere I've ever lived, I've gotten to know, um, my neighbors. In fact, my last house, I ended up selling both the neighbors on each side of my house in the subdivision, so I got to pick my neighbors to some extent, but yeah, absolutely. The last red flag is, and if I missed any, let me know. Drop your red flags in the comment, whether you're watching the replay or watching this live with us tonight. Drop what your red flags are. What's something you have to be able to put up with if you're going to live in Northern Michigan? Try to keep it clean. Hopefully, you'll keep it positive. Although if you don't keep it positive, it'll probably cause more people to watch. OMG, our neighbors are some of our closest friends. Absolutely, and as it should be. If you want to, a lot of people move to relocate to Northern Michigan just for the sense of community. And getting to know your neighbors is one of those ways. When Candace, my assistant, moved in, they made cookies for all their neighbors, so definitely part of living in Northern Michigan is you're going to get to know your neighbors. Unless you live in an area that you don't have a bunch of neighbors, maybe you live out in the country and you don't see a lot of people, and that's why you moved to Northern Michigan. If that's the case, you're not going to see your neighbors, but otherwise, you're probably likely to get to know your neighbors. Now, those are the red flags. Those are the things, those are the negatives, and I always like to end on a positive note. My mic's doing something crazy tonight. I like to end on a positive note, so we've got a laundry list of green flags. These are things that if you enjoy, you're going to love Northern Michigan. Frank V, I always like Frank V when he comes on and drops comments because they're my favorite. Too many damn tourists for me in July and August. I don't Hey, there's definitely a school of thought. I think that comes with living in a busy area. Look, when um, I was coming back into town tonight for an appointment to get ready for this, and the traffic is terrible coming in and out of Petoskey. I stopped off to get gas, and I tried to get back on, and there was just lines of traffic, and it took me 10 times as long as it should have. But I think that's just the downside to living in an area that a lot of people want to come to. Because if we didn't, it wasn't beautiful. And look, I think LA is great, Petoskey. I mean, every single town in North, from Cadillac North, has its own appeal to its own population of people. And I think that's really what makes Northern Michigan special is, the summertime here. Kid Rock said it best, "Summertime in Northern Michigan." It's one of a kind. There's a reason why people are spending 8, 9, $10 million to have houses here. It's a special place, and I truly believe that the 2 months, July and August, um, the reason a lot of people decide to relocate to Northern Michigan in general is just to uh, spend their time here. I do through the channel and through talking to people and through, the videos we make every week. The July and August are special times in Northern Michigan. There's no doubt about it. That is what made Northern Michigan popular since the beginning of time. But I'm here to also shed a light on the other seasons. Maybe it's because I'm a real estate agent and we're super busy in the summer months, but I think the fall, winter, spring's okay. I like fall and winter. Spring's okay. Uh, the best part about spring is you're getting ready for summer. Usually the real estate market's busy. here in the spring, so that's definitely a positive. But if you're here, or if you're watching this because you're just interested in Northern Michigan, maybe you're never gonna relocate here, but find this guy that talks about Northern Michigan, you know, anything else to do on a Thursday night at 7, so you tune in. Check out Northern Michigan in the months that are not July and August because I think there's some real value there as well. You know, the fall, it seems like over the course of time, the summer weather has shifted, even for this year. June was not a great weather month. July has been one of the best weather months of weather I've seen in a long time. It's one of the best Julys. It just seems like that's shifting, meaning September and October, the weather's a little bit better than it used to be, which is great for locals, but specifically locals that don't have kids because they don't have to contend with school. But if you're not used to being, if you've never been, I know people that only come here 1 week a year and it's in July, or 1 week a year and it's in August. I challenge you to come to Northern Michigan in the quote unquote off season. I think you might be surprised with what you find. Come here with an open mind. Come with a plan, whether it's looking at the fall colors, which I think are beautiful, going to the pumpkin patches, or snowshoeing in the winter, or trying skiing, or trying cross country skiing, or renting a snowmobile. Don't discount the off season months in Northern Michigan because again, I think those are some of the best times to be here. Ian says, red flag, that's not really red flag traffic. Yeah, means your 10-minute drive may take 20. I think I think for once Ian is under exaggerating. That 10-minute drive might be 30, 40 minutes. Um, Especially if there's any kind of road construction or anything along those lines, pun intended again. Um, I've noticed the traffic here this year. There's a couple additional stoplights that Petoskey put in. There's been some road construction. There's been some building going on, which I think is affecting the traffic, but this is the worst I've ever seen traffic in the summer in Northern Michigan. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that as a matter of fact as possible. I believe that this is the worst traffic I've seen it. Frank V says, "Spring and fall are my favorite for what I like to enjoy in Northern Michigan." Absolutely. I think spring and fall, um, spring I probably should like spring more than I do because by the time we get to spring, winter has held on. We're over it, and there's just not a lot to look forward to in the spring except for summer is coming. I'm an optimist, haha, absolutely. So another green flag, you like the quiet. No, it's tough. It's funny to say you like that liking the quiet is why you would like Northern Michigan after we just talked about how busy it is here. But it gets busy in a very concentrated area, meaning it's busy in downtown fill in the blank, Petoskey, Harbor Springs, Boyne City, Traverse City. If you get a little bit outside, and it doesn't take long, and that's another thing that I think one of the more subtle things that makes Northern Michigan special is it doesn't take long, or it doesn't take far for you don't have to travel far before you're just away from it all. There's places I'm in downtown Petoskey, the absolute center of downtown right now, and if you drove 5 minutes in just about any direction, maybe not straight because then you'd be in the water, but if you drove 5 minutes in any direction, it would be peace and quiet. I like Ike says, "Neighbors with junk in their yard." That is definitely something to contend with. Um, I love the guy, but the person that owns the house across the street from my house on the east side, um, has a lot going on in his yard, and luckily I have really tall trees, so I don't see it much, but that's something, and make this real estate related. Thanks for chiming in, Ike. To make this real estate related, that's why you wanna visit the neighborhood because a house may look nice on the MLS or on Zillow or wherever else, and then you can drive down the road and realize it is surrounded by, um, not nice stuff for lack of a better description, and that affects your property value, so good advice, Ike, I really appreciate it. You don't mind driving 30 minutes for groceries or tacos. There's a lot of great Mexican restaurants in Northern Michigan popping up. There's 3 or 4 in Petoskey itself, which I think is incredible. So if you like tacos and you don't mind driving to get them, you're gonna love Northern Michigan. So, um, I actually think driving to go out to dinner is almost fun to do if you're not in a time crunch. So last weekend, um, I had a rare quiet July Saturday, which was awesome. Went to the beach, went to one of the clubs we belong to, and it was packed. Like, you couldn't get a chair. We got food. It took an hour to get salads, so I thought, let's go a little bit east. So there's a restaurant, if you're familiar, on the Sheboygan River feeds into Mullet Lake. So the mouth of the Sheboygan River, there's a really cool restaurant called the Hackmatack. It's about an hour drive away. So we got in the car, we drove into the town of Sheboygan, which I haven't been to in a long time, and almost felt like tourists in our own area. I grew up in that area, but I haven't gone to hang out in downtown Sheboygan in a long time. We went to this place. Look these places up. This place called it's a wine bar called Queen's Head, and I ended up meeting the owner, and she gave us a tour, and she has so much going on there. She sells like Stormy Kromer stuff. She has a jewelry line. She has some kind of drink bar. She has a wine bar, and they actually have shows. So they do 2 shows a night. So I didn't know anything about the shows. We didn't plan for it, but that is definitely something we're going to check out in the future. And then we went down to the Hackmatack, got right in. Great restaurant that not a lot of people know about. The food, for whatever reason, the food tastes better when you go there via boat versus in a car. I don't know what the science is behind that, but um, that's one of the things I think is cool about that restaurant is you can pull your boat up right on their dock, tie it up, go in, have dinner, get back on your boat, go on your way, which is super cool way. There's just certain things in each, like I'm sure every town or every region has their thing like this, but my thing in Northern Michigan is anytime you can go to a restaurant via boat, and there's a handful of mine different various lakes. I think that's a really cool experience that you just can't do everywhere. So one of my favorite things in the world to do. Unfortunately, this time I was in my car, but still a great time. So if you're looking for an off the beaten path restaurant and you're not willing to travel 30 minutes or more, then make sure you check out the Hackmatack in Sheboygan. If you love local festivals, parades, and farmers markets, you're gonna love Northern Michigan. Petoskey has one. All the towns in Northern Michigan have farmers market. Every Friday, they shut down the street, part of the street, um, downtown Petoskey. They have a great farmers market, great produce, great everything, local meat, local honey. So if you love farmers markets and festivals and parades and that type of small town stuff, you're gonna love Northern Michigan because we definitely have a ton of that going on. This is one of my favorites. You want to know your butcher, barista, and bartender by name. I don't have a butcher. I do have a barista, and I don't think there's any there's probably some bartenders who know me by name. I don't drink a ton anymore, but, I used to like going out for wine once in a while. But, yeah, that's one thing I think is great is it doesn't take long when you and I've had clients tell me that, when somebody meets me for the first time, we'll go to get coffee and the barista will know my name. And I've had people tell me that, "Hey, now they know me by name because I bought here and I've been coming to the same place at the same time and I see the same girls." In fact, I used to not like so North Park Coffee is the coffee place I go to downtown the most, and I used to not like going there on the weekends because for whatever reason or just how scheduling works, there was a whole different crew on the weekends that I didn't know, they didn't see, and it just felt like a little bit less familiar going in there, but still a great coffee shop, and that is definitely Starbucks, I go to the Starbucks there's a Starbucks here just a little bit south of town. They also know my name, so it's definitely just part of being in a small. You enjoy the outdoors either when the weather even when the weather isn't perfect. Now that's gonna be tested this Saturday when the weather is not going to be perfect. Uh, Tough to live in Northern Michigan if you don't love the outdoors. I think that's a big allure of being here. I think that's a big part of the reason that so many people come to Northern Michigan is just being in the outdoors, whether it's walking, whether it's kayaking, going on your boat, hunting in the fall, hunting for mushrooms, riding horses, walking your dog. There's so many different things you can do in Northern Michigan, and I would challenge any of you indoor cats out there watching. I'll bet there's something you would enjoy in the great outdoors. It's good for you. There's nothing, if I have a tough week or a tough day, there's nothing like being in the sun to get a little more energy or a little bit more motivation. And that's definitely something to consider. Speaking of your barista, bartender, and butcher knowing your name, you support small business, and that is part of moving into the Michigan. I do my best to support as many local businesses as possible. You know, I go to North Perk as much as I can, but I also go to the Starbucks here. Um, a lot of the local grocery stores, Platts, Toski Sands, there's a lot of local businesses here that really survive on local supported business, and that's definitely a huge part of you're cool with wild animals in your yard. Now, this takes a little bit of getting used to, but if you live I don't care where you live in North Michigan, you're probably gonna have deer in your yard, whether it's I see deer downtown Petoskey all the time. So wherever you live in Northern Michigan, you're likely going to have wildlife in your front yard. Frankly, you fish July and August are really tough with all the traffic from pleasure boats, that makes sense. especially my home lake of Torch Lake and the rest of the Cedar Lakes. Fish early and late in the evening. Frank, that is great advice to people like Ian out there stirring up your Torch Lake, so, make sure you give 'em hell. You want to watch your kids grow up riding their bikes and catching frogs. That is definitely I've had a lot of people with kids. A large part of the reason they wanna relocate with their kids to Northern Michigan is just to let them be kids again. Let them ride their bikes in the neighborhood, catch frogs, play in the mud, do things that we all did as kids before cell phones and technology and social media took over. So that is definitely something to consider. You can laugh when the septic backs up or the power goes out. Neither one of those are funny, specifically if your septic backs up. But what we mean by that is you're just okay with some of the downsides of living in Northern Michigan, meaning not always your power is gonna go out once in a while. Your septic should never back up. Make sure you get it pumped or something breaks, but those types of things happen, just laugh because you're not in an area that you're not in a metropolitan area where the power doesn't go out very often or you have city sewer and water and those type of things. These are more of the red flags. You want perfect cell service 100% of the time. Now, we talked about that earlier. I'd say 90% of the time, we have positive cell service here. We fish clam and torch rivers in the summer months. We fish clam and torch river in the summer months quite a lot. I didn't know you fish. Always catch something. I'm no angler. I just follow my yeah. Um, that's one thing. If you have kids in Northern Michigan, they're gonna get into fishing. There's something about fishing and kids that just makes them, um, those 2 things go together. You assume everything closes at 10, try 7 in the winter. That's something yeah, in the wintertime, we definitely have a lot shorter hours in the wintertime than in the summertime. Drop a comment if you're watching this live or the replay, let me know what is the most inconvenient thing about living in Michigan to you? We mentioned the traffic earlier, but what else is out there? What else do you find inconvenient about living in Northern Michigan? Red flag if you expect to Uber Eats and Instacart on demand. Now we do have DoorDash here. I don't know if you have Instacart. I get grocery delivery from there, which is they do that through Ship. But you have to book those far in advance, and sometimes it's just shut down. A lot of places turn off their delivery services in the summertime because there is no way that Shipt or Meijer can keep up with every single grocery order. Um, because if you look at the radius around the Meijer in downtown or not downtown Petoskey, in Petoskey, that covers the area, the amount of people that can cover, that's or Walloon, places that just get flooded in the summertime. There is no way that they could make sure they service all those people. I only fish because Kate loves it. But you touch it's a red flag if you think all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive is optional. If you're gonna live in Northern Michigan full time, the good news and bad news, it's gonna give you a really good excuse. If you're a guy or girl that wants a big truck, uh, gives you a really good excuse to buy one because there's a lot of snow here, there's a lot of dirt roads, and you definitely need an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle to get around. Now, you don't need a big truck or a big SUV. There's a lot of people with little all-wheel drive cars. There's a lot of Teslas here. So you don't need these big giant vehicles unless, of course, you want one because you think they're cool, which I do. But definitely make sure you have the adequate car for Northern Michigan. The red flag, if you expect property taxes to be super low everywhere, um, property taxes relatively are low in most parts of Northern Michigan, uh, but in those parts of Northern Michigan that are not part of the lower ta they can be, like downtown Traverse City, downtown Petoskey. Um, of course, it depends on the value of your home. If you have a $2 or $3 million house, no matter where you are in Northern Michigan, the property taxes are gonna be high. So, if you're out in the rural parts of Northern Michigan, your taxes should be just fine. Red flags, hospital and specialists are far away from me, absolutely, that's something Frank, we talk about that a lot in the videos. That is something. If you live in Northern Michigan and you need specialists or hospital, you know, Traverse City has a hospital, Petoskey has a hospital, you're going to be traveling for specialized care. Now, I don't know if that ever changes, I don't know if there's ever, hubs that are created in Northern Michigan to sort of bridge that gap, but that is definitely something. I had a friend that was a radiation oncologist here in Petoskey, and he had clients, I shouldn't say, patients that he saw that came from the UP. I mean, that is a tremendous drive to come from the UP to Petoskey for treatment. So, definitely something to consider. It's a red flag if you assume a garage is standard. Now, most homes here have garages, but not all do. Garage is important to you. There's a couple ways to look at it. One, just buy a house with a garage, problem solved. Two, make sure there's an area to build a garage. People are collecting more and more stuff. People are having more and more cars and toys. You don't want garage space. So if the house doesn't have the size garage you want, can you make it bigger? Can you add a second garage? You might, a lot of people here that live on the water, that are in these 100-foot tight 100-foot lots or 50-foot lots, they actually buy property a ways away and build a pole barn to put all their stuff in. So also definitely something to consider. Another one of my personal favorites. You believe the Zillow estimate is a fact. Good, bad, right, or wrong. The Zillow is not all accurate. Make sure you reach out to a professional agent like myself or one of the other great agents in Northern Michigan if you're curious about what your home's worth or what the home you're thinking about purchasing is worth. We can definitely tell you what the true value of the home is fairly quickly. This is one I mentioned earlier. You think how it is on the 4th of July is like when it's all here all the time. There are people that come here that think this is just how it is all summer long, and that is not the case. So, again, make sure you visit Northern Michigan outside of the July 4th week or outside of July and August because I think you might be surprised. There's a different way of life. Get back to the green flags a little bit. You celebrate the first 50-degree day like a holiday. If you're anything like me, that first 50-degree day, you bust out the shorts and you start proclaiming summer is here. So there's nothing. One of the small, I would say, insider things about living in Northern Michigan that not everybody understands is that feeling when you go from the winter and the brutal winters we have and tons of snow. So especially this year with the ice storm into that first 50-degree day, and you can just feel the life come back to your body. That is definitely something special. You'd rather own boat shoes than dress shoes. I'm 50-50 this summer. I wear boat shoes. I'm wearing boat shoes right now. I will wear dress shoes if you invite me to your house to talk about listing it and dress up as a sign of respect. But yeah, boat shoes are common. There's some things I should do a live on. What is boat shoe is the dress shoe of Northern Michigan. F-250 is the Range Rover of Northern Michigan. Just stuff like that. Because I think that'd be a fun one. But yeah, boat shoes are certainly acceptable up here. You're okay with small town drama and knowing the zoning board meeting news. There's not a lot of maybe I just avoid it. There's not a lot of small town drama here, but it's here. So definitely make sure you're ready for that. You're down to host friends because there's no Uber to get home. If you're gonna have friends over and they're gonna have a couple glasses of wine or a couple beers or whatever, sometimes they just stay because there's no Ubers and you don't want your friends driving after they've been drinking. I certainly don't. So that's why we all need big houses here. That way we have extra rooms for our friends to stay over. You'd rather have property than square footage. There are a ton of houses in Northern Michigan that are on 20, 30-acre lots, and the houses are 1,400 square feet. So, again, there's so many different lifestyles in Northern Michigan, so many different ways to live here. But one of them is certainly being on acreage. I've got a house that's on 50 acres. Um, I love it. It's a feels like a full-time job keeping up with it, but it's also a great excuse to buy four-wheelers and tractors and stuff like that. So, I think maintaining some property in Northern Michigan is definitely one of those things right up there with living on the water or those type of Northern Michigan specific things. You'd rather look up at the stars than the city skylines. There's some areas, most areas in Northern Michigan have zero light pollution, and it's just incredible to look up in the dark sky, see the stars, and not see a city light in sight. So definitely special. I don't do this, but I know a lot of people do, where they swap out their wardrobe. They put their summer clothes in these plastic totes and put them in the garage, add it in the basement or whatever, and then just cycle their clothes throughout the season. I leave everything in the closet because I don't want to deal with it, but that's definitely something that Northern Michigan people do. You want to find secret spots that aren't on Google Maps. That's one of the things about Northern Michigan is some of the best spots are so unknown that you actually have to just know you're not gonna find it. You're gonna have to have a friend drop a pin on Google Maps, but you're not gonna find it just by going on Google Maps. So, again, as we finish these up, drop a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. What's a green flag? on living in Northern Michigan. What's your whether you're watching this live or the replay, what is your favorite part of living in Northern Michigan? You learn to pronounce Petoskey, Sheboygan, and Charlevoix. Those are not easy to pronounce, and a lot of people get them wrong, specifically Charlevoix, because that doesn't look anything like it sounds. So that's definitely something of living here. You own more coolers than suitcases. I was just talking to somebody today, Ian, in fact, he sent me a picture of a side by side because I love side by sides, and it had a Yeti cooler in the back. I said, "Is it wild that the biggest flex in this picture is the $900 Yeti cooler?" Because I don't know what happened as a society or as a world, but coolers got expensive. And I remember igloo coolers growing up. I didn't know what they used to cost back then, but now it seems like every cooler is 3, 4, 500 bucks, 1,000 bucks. I don't know how we got to a world where coolers became $500 where you had to save up to buy a cooler, but here we are, and um, you definitely see a lot of them around Northern Michigan, and my guess is a lot of people spend more money on their coolers than they do on their suitcases. One thing great about Northern Michigan is you are always 20 minutes from water, at least at any given time. There's so much water here that you're always close, whether you wanna jump in the water, go fishing, and there's always water nearby. This is me. You've worn a hoodie and shorts in the same day and called it normal. There's a stretch in the spring where it's tough to dress in Michigan because it's super cold in the morning, 40 degrees in the morning, 70 degrees. That is very hard to dress for in Northern Michigan. You measure in time, distance, and not in miles. I don't know how many miles my whole life. I don't know how many miles anything is away from me. I know how many minutes everything is away from me. So that's a really fun one. I love all the wildlife off my deck through the backyard to the dock. Absolutely. And the last one, you're ready to feel more alive here than anywhere else. That is something special about Northern Michigan. You know, look, a lot of people we talk to, there's a lot of the people watching this behind us for a second. We talk a lot on this channel because a lot of people that watch my videos and watch our videos are relocating here, which is great. But there are also people that are buying properties or homes here, specifically on the water, that it's just part of their legacy. They want to buy a place that's going to be passed down from family to family to family. So their kids can get the sense of relief that they get when they drive here from Chicago or Metro Detroit or fly here from Florida and just feel the release of being in Northern Michigan. Again, if you're watching this because you've never been here, you're thinking about visiting, check it out because there is no more relaxing place in Northern Michigan, specifically when you find your way to live here. You find your lifestyle and you dial your life in to be exactly how you want it. That's a pretty special place to get to, and there are very that you can do that that are clean. There's no crime here, great schools, surrounded by fresh water, and that is what Michigan is special. So if you're watching this because you're thinking about buying a house in Northern Michigan, you're thinking about exiting Northern Michigan, you're just curious about Northern Michigan, please reach out to me directly, and I'd love to help you. If you have any real estate, reach out. I'd be happy to help you. If anything on this, if you're watching the replay and you have any questions about anything we talked about tonight or want to weigh in, I love hearing people's comments. Some are positive, some are negative, but they all matter to me and they all help me understand more about what's either going on in Northern Michigan or what people think about Northern Michigan. So, as always, thank you. I will be back next Thursday with the halfway breakdown, the halftime report, and I will talk to you then.